All right, welcome everybody to our book talk with Professor Bernadette Flores. The book is The Maidens by Alex. I've heard it pronounced Michaelides. I've heard it pronounced
Michaelides,
Michaelides.
yeah. I don't know.
Alex M. wrote this book, following up on his success with The Silent Patient. I'm so excited about this book because Professor Flores is like an English person. She has her master's in English. She is an absolute book nerd and library fan. And so I'm really excited because I had fun reading this book, but mostly I had fun talking with Professor Flores about this book. So thank you all for joining us. We are at the end of the talk going to raffle away 2 copies of The Maidens, so you can read the book and decide for yourself whether you agree with B or me. And let us know who you agree with, because it's gonna be me. And with that, you're also welcome to ask any questions during the talk. I'm going to be keeping an eye on chat, and you're also welcome to unmute and speak up and interact. It's absolutely encouraged. So,
Yeah.
B, take it away.
Thank you. Yes, and there's going to be points throughout the talk where I'll ask you some questions. You can either type in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, whatever you feel comfortable doing, if you feel comfortable participating. But I just want to say thank you all for being here and taking some time out of your day. This really means a lot to me, that you all are here. So I'm going to talk about The Maidens. And this book, y'all, this book got me through some feels. Okay, so I'm going to go into a little bit about dark academia, because I feel like this like bleeds dark academia. And then I'll go into a little bit of a synopsis, talking about some themes, some quotes that I liked, and throughout, like I said, I'll be asking some questions. And at the very end, we'll do a little chat and giveaway. Okay, so first off, this is an adult mystery thriller, right? This is set in present day, and it's adult mystery thriller. But I would like to ask you all, do you all like thriller mysteries, mystery thrillers? I don't know which way to say it. I've seen it both ways. Do you like this genre, or I guess like what makes it appealing to you or exciting? And are there any mystery thrillers or thriller mysteries that you like? Movies, books, other media, anything that you that you've seen recently, perhaps? Anything. I'll give y'all a minute to chat or type it out if you like.
While folks are typing, I'm comfortable unmuting and talking, so I will. So thriller mystery isn't a usual genre for me.
Okay.
But what I like about it is I like any book that I'm just like absorbed in. Any book that I just keep turning the pages and want to rip through, that's what I really enjoy. And so I think thrillers do that really well. They keep you hooked.
Right.
And even if it's just like the end of a chapter, they're like, and then the body was found or whatever. Yeah. Like the cliffhangers is what keeps me moving.
Right.
And Hector says, I do really like mysteries. I like the tone, atmosphere, and trying to solve the puzzles they present.
Right. Yes. That is so true, especially the atmosphere. And like Emily, you're saying like just a page turner, I just get into that. Yeah. And then Tara said, just love to be curious and imagine the possibilities. Okay, so does that mean you like to figure out, like, guess what the ending is? I sometimes I try not to do that, but I feel yeah. But I feel like so many people are like always trying to like figure out what's gonna happen. Amy, I love thrillers. The mystery is the exciting part. The character development, yes, can be really good in these books too, even when the mystery is easily solvable. That is a good one. Atmosphere. I do like thrillers. Yes. It is like a movie. That's so true, Kimberly. A good plot twist. Murder on the Orient Express. That's a good one. I recently saw Death on the Nile. That one was so good. So well done. Welcome to those of you who just came in. But yeah, I'm all about trying to guess the ending. Right. So this book is definitely is right into that alley of like, you know, the thriller mystery and trying to like figure out like what is going on. You know that there's something there, but what is it, right? Like what is going on? But, oh, wait. So to begin, I wanted to talk a little bit about dark academia as an aesthetic, because whenever I first heard about dark academia, I was like, yes, please sign me up. But I really didn't know what it was. And so I started doing like my own research, and then I was like really into the whole like idea of dark academia. But I want to talk about the aesthetic a little bit so that way it can help us understand this book a little bit better. So essentially, and any source that I came across, a staple in dark academia canon is definitely Donna Tartt's The Secret History. Like that one for sure, like kept showing up, was so like popular among people who were like, if you want to know dark academia, read this book. So that's on my TBR for later on this year for sure. But this dark academia can be like a lifestyle for some. It could be an aesthetic. It can be a way, like a mindset for some people. But there's definitely the subculture that we also find with dark academia. If you are on TikTok or even just like Google dark academia, you will get a lot of a lot of results with different ideas and different interpretations of what dark academia is. And it's very much a visual philosophy, as this video that I'm going to show you says. It's a very much that visual aspect of like, whenever somebody is dressed in a certain way, I'm like, oh, I could see dark academia in that, you know. But ultimately, there are three things in writing, right, in the genre of dark academia, especially with the book The Maidens. There are three things that are pretty prevalent in novels and in the books, which is one is education and or knowledge or learning, so like the pursuit of knowledge. And this goes along with what a lot of people believe as education as an end in of itself. So instead of like attaining a higher education for the purpose of a professional or career pursuit, it's more of like that personal fulfillment of learning, right? So many of like people believe like liberal arts or the humanities, those fields of study are essential for a good, well-rounded life. And so that seems to be a very common idea, especially like with Greek mythology and the Maidens, that understanding mythology and philosophy seems to be a really, really popular thing. There's also the aspect of mystery in these books, right? And there's also something that is secretive about the stories or in the story. So it could either be a secret society or something, a secret being kept from in a certain group. Something secretive is going on in the book. So there's this idea that it's less practical. It's a less practical education, but it's a more beautiful education. So it sheds light on the failings of actual academia world, and dark academia replicates the trappings of exclusionary institutions. But I would like to show you this video. I'm going to raise up my volume because this.
First appearing as a tag on Tumblr entries about books in the mid-2010s, by 2021, dark academia had millions of posts on TikTok and Instagram, signaling it had officially grown into what in internet parlance is called an aesthetic.
It's day 4 of dressing up as different aesthetics to school, and it's finally dark academia.
Landing somewhere between a subculture, a lifestyle, and a visual philosophy, internet aesthetics are rapidly emerging as Gen Z's primary way of communicating what is valuable and beautiful to them.
I may be in Wisconsin, but spiritually, I'm at a cafe in Dublin, Ireland, being the serious main character in a dark academia-inspired fantasy novel.
In philosophy, aesthetics is a field of study that uses notions of perception and taste to determine what is good and how virtue relates to beauty.
Aesthetics generally is a branch of philosophy concerned with the study and nature of beauty.
And for dark academia, the epitome of beauty is a kind of education that is exhilarating, all-consuming, and poetic.
I absolutely love this aesthetic, and the understanding of knowledge is something life-giving and desperate.
It's no coincidence that the dark academia aesthetic exploded in 2020, when students all over the world were sent home because of the shutdown of school campuses during the COVID-19 pandemic.
they're canceling classes or they're going to online learning, not just for a couple of weeks, but for the rest of the year.
There's nothing like being cooped up in your childhood bedroom to make college quads seem unbearably romantic.
Since I was not allowed back on campus, I would have to try to recreate this vibe. Now I have this dark.
So I'm going to show this video again in a little bit, but I would like to ask you all, why do you think this aesthetic, right? Why do you think this dark academia aesthetic might be appealing, not to just Gen Z, right? But also just to readers. Why would you feel like, or why would it be appealing to you perhaps? And have you read anything with dark academia vibes? So I know some people have said, Faith, okay, so you did read The Secret History, but has anybody else read anything with dark academia vibes or something? Now you might be like, oh, I didn't realize that that's what I was reading.
I have read If We Were Villains. I can't remember the author at the time, but it's like Shakespearean. So the main cast is like majoring or something in Shakespearean arts or something. And that one is like my favorite dark academia, hands down.
Really?
But
okay.
yeah, it's so good. Like it had me crying at the end. You know, when a book can make me cry, it's so good. And I think it's appealing because I mean, it can be very realistic because I mean, we are in school, in university, and these dark academia novels or media take place in school. And so we can see like our reality reflected through the books or these movies that we watch.
Right. That's such a good point. Because you're like kind of going through and you're like, wow, I can kind of see some of these things being played out or having a possibility to be. So Gaudy Night, Emily Metcalf brought up that A Gaudy Night by Dorothy L. Sayers. I've never read her, but I've heard that she's like a solid author.
Did you hear it from me? Because I'm something of an apostle of hers. Like anytime. We do have a copy of Gaudy Night at the library if anyone's interested.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, highly recommend.
No, I think I heard it on TikTok first, but I think you mentioned her to me before.
Almost definitely.
But yeah, so I'm putting If We Were Villains and Gaudy Night on my TBR now. So Kimberly's like, I think it probably enhances one's experience. Right, yeah. Even outside of formal education, learning is such a human thing to do. The Secret History is the only one I've read, but it was very good and very creepy. That's good. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rhea. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm gonna definitely put that on my TBR. But yeah, so and it's interesting that we think of like dark academia being associated with learning because, you know, darkness, right? That there's kind of a connotation with right there, because knowledge is usually associated with light. And I don't know why I have my stress ball in my hands, but knowledge is usually associated with light, right? But then there's like this darkness in academia, right? Well, what is that about? I feel like some of us could probably be like, yeah, I can definitely see that. But I found it interesting that some people said, you know, darkness is typically associated with ignorance, right? Or withholding information from somebody or keeping something from somebody, right? However, the darkness in dark academia is more so associated with the classist nature of like an elite education, right? And so some people feel like that's why the aesthetic might feel a little bit like a contradiction, right? Because of that idea of light and dark. Okay, so the synopsis. So what the heck is a book about, right? That's what we're here for. So this is the non-spoilery bits, but basically we have in the beginning of the novel, Mariana, who is our main character. She's a grieving widow and a group therapist who cares deeply for her niece. And one of Zoe, her niece, one of her friends ends up being murdered at Cambridge University. And so Mariana travels to Cambridge to support her, be there for her, right? Because they really don't have any other family members. However, Mariana, of course, had plans to stay for a couple of days. She ends up staying a little bit longer than she planned to. because there's definitely something going on. And so Mariana feels like she needs to find out who the killer is, identity of the killer. And she's automatically like, right off the bat, she's suspicious of this a professor in particular, Edward Fosca. However, and also I should mention here that, and this stuff is revealed in the beginning of the book, so I'm trying not to give away too many spoilers, but Mariana also went to Cambridge University herself, as well as her deceased husband. So she has like almost like a real connection that's different, you know, for her, because she remembers that university in a different way as well. However, going back to Edward Fosca, he's a classics professor who has almost this cult-like following of a group of girls that he tutors, because at Cambridge University, I guess they have like, you know, they tutor certain students, right? And so the students that he tutors, they're all girls and they call themselves the Maidens. So hence why we get the Maidens, right? The title. So Mariana is feeling like there's something suspicious about him. He sounds messy. I don't like this. So she decides to stick around. And then another girl ends up being murdered, right? So then Mariana ends up going into this investigation on her own, of course, like after how many times being told just not to investigate, of course, what does she do? She investigates. And she is hard into like making sure she focuses on Fosca, because that's who she believes did it, right? And she's so convinced that he's a murderer. However, in a certain point in the book, all of the victims, or the victims so far, they've been found with a postcard with an ancient Greek quote on them. So, you know, there's this idea of whoever has a postcard like that will ultimately be a victim or fall prey. And so Mariana, is her niece, Zoe, tells her, I also have received a postcard. And so Mariana is like, oh, we got to go now. And then something happens, right? Before they are able to leave, Zoe's like, I have one more thing to do. And then that's whenever we get into like the stuff, right? The crazy stuff. So there are some themes that I found in the book. And I think sometimes themes can be subjective, because it's really like our own experiences, or maybe our identities, or you can even say ideologies from maybe what we know. But sometimes we bring those lenses, right, into what we read, what we consume. And so I definitely saw, it might be a little telling, but I definitely saw these three things of grief, love, and fate. So with grief, Mariana is grieving for her dead husband, right? That's how the book opens. We understand that right away. Her dead husband, Sebastian, and the life they had together. There's also this theme of love, which, oh, you know what, let me go back to grief really quick. The loss of her husband drives Mariana to hold on to the memory of him and try to hold on to the control that she doesn't really have. And she is constantly being reminded of her husband, of the loss of her husband, because she's at Cambridge, where they met, and they, you know, that's where their relationship grew. And it's not healthy, right? She's grieving, but she's going back to the place where they met, and it's like, sis, this does not look good. But anyway, so onto love. There's different ways that love comes up, right? And between Mariana and her niece, Mariana and her husband, Zoe and Sebastian, and we get this idea that love can be a force for good in some ways, because there's this idea that we're willing to sacrifice ourselves for those we love, right? In the case of Mariana and Zoe. However, love can also be seen as toxic, as is the case between Zoe and Sebastian, since love can drive people to do certain things that might be a little less than loving. There's also this really intense theme of fate in the book. So Edward Foscas, the professor, the classist professor, his power over the maidens is almost like supernatural in a way. It's almost like wow, the maidens have arrived. You know, they all dress in white for the funeral of the first girl who was killed. It's kind of like out of place, right? But there's also, so there's that example of fate that kind of runs throughout the book, but there's also this idea of fate that runs throughout the book, throughout the story of, for example, the goddess Demeter and Persephone, having to do with the death of Sebastian, Mariana's husband. And so we get two kind of understandings of fate. One is our modern understanding that fate is seen as an agency or power that that orders or predetermines a future course of events, right? However, with the goddess or Greek mythology, such as the goddess Demeter and Persephone, fate is often inexplicable and unavoidable, right? In the affairs of human beings. So we kind of see that come up time and time again for the people. And so here are some of the quotes that I won't read all of these, but here are some quotes that I found. Oh, and look at that, I'm missing citation. That's cute. Sorry. The thing I noticed was that I was like, wait a minute. Oh God, don't be me, students. You know, people, don't be me. But here are some quotes that threw me off. I'm sorry. That I found, and like I said, these are from more in the beginning of the book. It's something I was trying to find things that didn't necessarily give away too much. But for example, the one that okay, the grief one. The grief one was just like, when I read that, I felt that, you know, it was so deep to me. But it says something beautiful, something holy had died. She's talking in reference to her husband. All that remained were the books he read, the clothes he wore, the things he touched. She could still smell him on them, still taste him on the tip of her tongue. And so this is like, oh my God, that's like so paralyzing. I was just like, when I read that, I was like, oh my God, am I crying? Like, who are you? What? But it's almost so paralyzing that I could feel that grief through the pages, through the writing. And it was just so powerful. But there's also this one about fate that I was like, whoa. It felt as if a kind of pestilence, a plague were spreading through the college. As in a Greek myth, that sickness that destroyed Thebes, an invisible airborne poison drifting through the courtyards and these ancient walls, once a refuge from the outside world, no longer offered any protection. So when I read that, I was like, wow, like it would make so much sense that, you know, at Cambridge, you know, there has to be this sense of protection, right, from the outside world. Like they're being protected because they're having, you know, this elite education, right? They're privileged in a lot of ways, right? But girls are starting to be murdered, and now that kind of protection seems almost fragile, like it's not there. There's a vulnerability that goes into it. But there's also this idea of fate. Whenever going back to the goddess Demeter and Persephone, in the beginning of the novel, we learned that Mariana prays to Demeter, and the maiden who we learn is Persephone, her daughter, right? When they travel to Naxos, Greece. So if you're not familiar with their mythology, right? Demeter, I forgot exactly what she's a goddess of, but she controls the seasons. And yes, goddess of harvest, yes. And her daughter Persephone is kidnapped by Hades because he can, right? And so Demeter goes into this deep depression and is just like mourning the loss of her daughter, and she begs the other gods to intervene. She begs Zeus, and so one day Zeus is like, okay, Hades, dude, you gotta give her up. Like you that wasn't right, no. And so Hades is like, how about let's make a deal? And so he ends up, you know, saying she can spend 2 seasons or some time out of the year up on Earth with her mother. So then that's where we get spring and summer. And then she can spend the other part of the year down here with me. So that's where we get fall and winter. So like the death of things. That's when Demeter is crying. That's when Demeter is like sad because her daughter's left her. And then whenever Demeter comes back to the realm of the humans, the realm of the gods, that's when Demeter is flourishing, right? So we get this idea of fate being almost pervasive and almost suffocating in a way. I felt like it was like everywhere we looked, there was like kind of some mythology or fate being presented to us. So I am going to give us some spoilers. So if you are wanting to read this book and you don't want to hear spoilers, please mute me. But before you do that, I have a couple things that I do want to talk about or show you afterwards. So I'll have another sign that says end of spoilers. Okay. But I'll go ahead, just mute me so that way you don't hear this. So what I'm going to do, because I didn't want to put a block of text on this, I didn't want to do that because it looked tacky. So what I did was, let me add something. What I did was I went ahead and used this ambiance that I use whenever I'm studying. I sometimes put these up on a screen, and I was like, I could just use that while I tell you all the spoilers. Yeah, because this is my life. I was like, this is perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and play it. So Mariana is a young widow whose husband Sebastian died in a swimming accident the year prior to her going to Zoe at Cambridge, right? So Zoe's friend Tara is the one who's found murdered. Like I said earlier, Zoe suspects Edward Fosca because he's a handsome and young popular professor, and it's revealed that Tara had been sleeping with him, the one who's murdered, right? However, Mariana gets drawn into investigating. Let me turn this down a little bit in case it's throwing you off. Mariana gets drawn into investigating Fosca as well as the Maidens, which is a cult-like group of women who idolize Fosca. Tara had been one of the Maidens, apparently, and soon 2 more of the women are found dead. In the end, it is revealed that Zoe, Mariana's niece, is the killer. It turns out that Zoe had been lovers with Sebastian, who married Mariana for money. That's so sad. However, after his accident, Zoe decided to continue with his plan of murdering, after his accident, decided to continue with his plan of murdering Mariana to get her fortune. The plan was to involve Mariana in an investigation into a series of murders, all committed by Zoe, of course, because she's the one who's been killing everybody. That threw me because I did not see that coming. Frame Fosca and finally kill Mariana. So, however, Mariana manages to fight off Zoe, and Zoe ends up getting arrested or being arrested and taken to a psychiatric facility. And if you've read The Silent Patient, there's a little connection that happens at this facility. So, okay, so that's the end of the spoilers. Okay, I didn't want to go on too much, right? So you can now unmute me, please unmute me. But I also wanted to show you a little bit more from this video, because I thought that this video did a really good job of discussing dark academia, but also this idea of in adult mystery thrillers, right? Of how complex these stories can be. I understand that there are some critiques of the Maidens, and if anybody wants to chime in, that's totally fine. Some people have said, it's too similar to The Silent Patient. I didn't see that. I did not see that. I don't know where. I couldn't figure it out because I was like, oh, I already know his, like, Alex Michaelides. I already know what he's going to do because I've already read The Silent Patient. I could not figure it out. Some people have said it doesn't play fair because they couldn't figure it out. Another person was like, the only way to figure it out is if you know Greek mythology, but there's this other critique that people have, not necessarily about the book, but about this aesthetic in general, which is dark academia, that this book is another, or it furthers the privileging of elitist education. I wanted to push back on that a little bit. So I wanted to show you a clip from the same video.
There's the intellectual lifestyle accessible on any budget.
My taste in fashion and my budget for fashion are two very different things right now.
Secondly, dark academia is slowly making the imagery associated with elite scholarship more inclusive.
There is a tendency within the dark academia community to move towards something more inclusive, something less problematic.
Some have criticized the aesthetic source materials for lacking diversity.
Most of the media, the photos, the films, the literature, everything like that, everyone is white.
Which is somewhat inevitable given its inspirations. Everything about the university establishment, from the Western canon to the architecture, is glaringly white, male, and waspy. As Robinson Meyer writes for The Atlantic, the American college campus and its Gothic filigree seem timeless, pristine constructions. Nothing could be farther from the truth. They are historical eruptions, made possible by philanthropic economics, continental envy, and racism.
Some of the country's major universities, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, are drenched in sweat and sometimes the blood of Africans brought here.
But when it comes to dark academia, numerous creators of color are imparting their influence. Some share reading lists with books from the Middle East, Asia, and Africa that fit the aesthetic. Others create mood boards and instructional videos that model dark academia fashions on people of color. One of the most popular dark academia creators on TikTok, Kosi Fairy, is Muslim. And finally,
sorry,
there's the intellectual.
Okay, so yeah, I thought that was really like inspiring, but also like I could see how or why this would be the time for dark academia to be more inclusive in ways that maybe before it hadn't been able to, right? But as kind of like a final round of chatting, I would like to ask you all, what do you think about what you've heard today? You know, I try not to give too many spoilers. I try to be clear while not being spoilery, but are you maybe interested in it? Would you like to read it? Have you read this book or The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides? Would you want to? Let me pull up the chat.
Maybe while folks are typing, I'll chime in and say that last clip of the video of sort of like, you know, dark academia being sort of like becoming more inclusive because of the participants in it, that's really nice to see, because I read the book, had some feelings about it, watched a bunch of reviews online. There are so many like librarians and authors and just like really good book reviewers, whether or not they're professional, who reviewed the book. And a lot of the time they went into dark academia and the sort of like the just sort of racial issues in dark academia of exclusion. And so that's really, because it is, I think that there is something to be said about like, it's pretty though and nice, and like that's such a like basic surface level like understanding of an aesthetic. So to hear that like specifically young people are doing what they want with it, that makes me really happy. Even if it's just as simple as like, here's my outfit inspired by dark academia. Yes, now dark academia is your space. You made it your space. That's really cool, I think.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I like that there's this idea of like, you know, because, you know, how I was saying in the beginning, this aesthetic, the type of knowledge that's privilege is like that, you know, liberal arts or something in the field of humanities, or, you know, more the classical education, right? And I mean, I'm an English major, so I mean that's my thing. But I also think that like I would want it to be more inclusive, right? So even if people are in STEM, you know, for example, they can still have fun dressing up, you know, or enjoying the books, right? So I really appreciate that there's, and of course it would be Gen Z who would be, I feel like Gen Z has been doing a lot in terms of pushing back against like, and you know, things that are problematic. I'll say it nicely that way, right? They've been able to push back against a lot of those things. And I was like, of course they would do this. Thank you. Like stand up and best recognize. So I really appreciate that. And I feel like now, because like you were saying, Emily, I felt like there was something problematic about this and I feel like I shouldn't like it, but I do. but I don't want to, I don't want to say that I do. But now I feel like, you know what? No, I can like it, and it's okay. That's totally fine. And so some of the comments,
looks like a lot of people are interested in reading it.
yes, everyone can unmute. No, that's nope. Sorry. I was like, everyone can unmute Professor Flores now. Okay, never mind. That was you. Kimberly said, I think it sounds super interesting. Love to read. I would love to read it. Very interesting. This genre is completely new to me, but sounds appealing. Yes, it's a great idea for a summer read. I would love. There's also this other book that I feel like fits into that dark academia. I know I'm not talking about this book, but it's called Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I love this book. Oh my gosh, so good. So, and I have the two that were recommended earlier. So intriguing. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I caught the tail end, but it sounds, yes. Let me know if you read it. That would be awesome. Okay, so Brittany, I was like, where are you at? I was like, she said she was in a 10. So I really didn't enjoy this book. But I also didn't like The Silent Patient. Would you, Brittany, mind telling us a little bit about why, without maybe giving away spoilers, because we have time for a little chat. Do you maybe want to say something as to why you didn't enjoy it?
Sure. Yeah. So also literary major, who's going to be, surprisingly, I get to walk into one of these privileged academic old guard spaces in the fall for my master's program. And so there is this like romanticization of these, especially as you said, the humanities, and walking into like ancient sacred text area where we're still constantly hammering on. But I think my problem with these books by this author specifically is that they're supposed to be female centric, but they're being written by a man who's deeply invested in psychology without like the study of like feminine psychology, right? So I don't need the male gaze to psychoanalyze women and also to put it on the scale of Greek mythological timeline, because Greek mythology is complicated in its own way. And just to assume that and to reiterate the evils of femininity is deeply problematic to be happening in our era, especially because he's getting a lot of attention for these books. So just overall, on top of the problem of it only being white casted as well, always bothers me. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of the overall look, style, feel, especially because it's first off, it's lazy Greek mythology. Like the Maidens are the Maenads, right? Like they just totally overwrote some of this Greek mythology for their own benefit. And so like taking the artistic woman and coding her again as evil as a trope in these books, I'm over this guy.
Yes, and I thank you so much for that, Brittany. Emily, you very much echoed some of your opinions whenever we chatted about this book before today. That is one of the critiques as well, is like the author is writing a female perspective that can be seen as like. Do you want to mention the because I don't think it's a spoiler, Emily, but do you want to mention the instance where you were like, a woman would not do that? Like you just look so like indignant, like a woman wouldn't do that.
I got stuck early on. The main character is a therapist. She's a group therapist in London. And again, these aren't spoilers. This is like first or second chapter. They are short chapters, by the way, which for me contributes to why I zipped through it, and I appreciate that. But in one of the first chapters, we see her conducting a group therapy session in her personal home, which again, would we do that? Invite people into our homes as women who live alone? Maybe, maybe not. So they come to her house, they have their group therapy. Most of the people leave except for one man who does not accept the boundaries that she, as his therapist, is trying to establish. The physical boundaries of get out of my house, but also like the mental boundaries. She's saying she cannot counsel him one-on-one. It's not the kind of counselor she is. When she finally gets him to leave after some inappropriate, just disregarding of her boundaries, he leaves. There's a line in the book that says she resisted the urge to lock the door behind him, and I thought,
no. No.
I don't often have strange men at my home when I feel unsafe, but if I did, I'd lock the door when they left.
Yeah.
I lock the door when that's not the case. I go home, I close my door, I lock my door. It was so, I am obviously still fuming about this. Like, why would she resist the urge to lock the door when a man who has shown that he is disregarding your boundaries, and a man who also we know has tools for violence on his person, why wouldn't we lock him out?
Right. Yeah, but it could also
Still thinking
be
about
like,
it.
yeah, and it could also be like kind of like if you think about like her relationships with other men in the book, it's like kind of like maybe we need to think about this. But yeah, that was a good point. When I read that too, I was like, I don't know about that, sis. That seems a little shady. You just lock that door and put the deadbolt. Oh my gosh. I'm not just locking the door, I'm calling a friend to come over. True. Very, very much true. Oh my gosh. And that's a no for me. I'll be locking all of the doors and checking the windows.
It does contribute to a sense of discomfort. It contributes to the sort of aesthetic of like something eerie is happening. It contributes to making Mariana feel vulnerable, which I think is something that the author tries to do throughout. She's just in a lot of situations where it's like, no, that's not how we behave.
But then I also think that there's this interesting idea of some people say like, with horror movies or slasher films, there's always a character who does things that you're just like, why would you do that? Like, why are you running and like Michael Myers is walking and he's still able to catch up with you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would you do that?
Why are you going into that basement by yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did Jack the Ripper teach them nothing? Come on, oh my gosh, I know. We should have learned. Take notes, y'all. Oh my gosh. So is there anything else that y'all would like to chat about? Is there anything you would like to ask me? Anything in particular? Yeah.
I will. Maybe folks are going to put some questions in the chat, and please do. Professor Flores is knowledgeable about dark academia, about this book, about many other books. Just a cool person in general. While you are typing out questions for her, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And we're gonna do the book giveaway.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, sharing. B, can you give me a thumbs up if you see my screen?
Yes.
Sweet, okay. Here we go, we're gonna spin the book. And if Brittany wins it, we might pass it on, depending on how she feels about that. Kimberly, yay! Oh. Okay, I am gonna write your name down, and I'm going to once we've got 2 copies to give away, so we're gonna remove your name. We're gonna spin one more time. And Aaron Hutchins, is Aaron still here? Awesome. Okay, so Aaron and Kimberly, my email address is, I'm gonna spell my name right, is right there in the chat. Would you please reach out to me and let me know how I can best get these copies of the books to you? You can come to the library. If you are an off-campus person, we can ship them to you. Let me know what works best for you. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing then. And B, we do have a couple questions in there. Faith wants to know how long it took for you to read the book.
So I was on my phone because I was checking because I have Goodreads. In case if you don't have Goodreads, it's like a social media platform for people who read, and I love it. just saying. So I was checking Goodreads, and it took me 2 weeks and then like 2 days ish. Okay. But it's because like I love reading. And so I every night before I go to bed, I try to spend like 30 to 45 minutes before bed reading in bed. And so this one was such an easy like page turner. It was just like, I got through it so quickly. So yeah, so I think I read this one a little faster than I planned. Do you plan on reading more within this genre, in particular, any of the more inclusive newcomers to the genre? If you do you have one at the top of your list? So yes, I do want to read If We Were Villains, also Gaudy Night, but there's also there's a book called Catherine House. Wilder Girls is another book, but there's this book, oh gosh, what is it called? No, that's not it. Legendborn. It's supposed to be a take on the King Arthur legend, but it's supposed to have people of color. It's supposed to have like a different take on the King Arthur legend, and it's supposed to be kind of in that realm of dark academia. So I've heard. There's also like another one that I can't find right now, but I definitely. No, that's not really it. Yeah, no, I definitely have others that are on my TBR, but I think Catherine House and Legendborn are perhaps two that I really want to get into. Yes, check out Goodreads. The audiobook is about 9.5 hours. Yeah. Yes. Oh my God. And I have, okay, so this is funny, but sometimes I read the book while I have an audiobook going, if that makes sense. I do that with more of the, like, for example, like Poppy War. Poppy War is a really good book, but Faith, have you read it?
That is my favorite book of all time.
Oh my gosh, shut the door.
I'm so excited because I was going to recommend you read her newest book that's coming out. It's called Babel, and it's dark academia, very much diverse, and it's about it has like a really long name. I pulled it up. It's called The Necessity of Babel, or The Necessity of Violence, an Arcane History of the Oxford Translators Revolution. So it's about how it's very complicated, but like how people translating books and works influence how they present the work and kind of keep power over minorities and such. And I think there's a paranormal aspect to it. I'm not sure, but R.F. Kuang is the author, and she is hands down like my favorite author of all time. She published The Poppy War at 18 years old, and I don't know how she did that because it's insane. I know, I'm like obsessed with her.
I'm over here like at 18, I was what was I doing?
Definitely not writing that book. Oh my gosh.
The new one from R.F. Kuang,
it's just called it hasn't come out yet. It hasn't come out. I think it comes out later in the year, August, actually.
Oh, okay.
So you can search it as Babel. It has a long title, but yeah, Brittany, I think your troubles with the Maidens, it sounds like you would really enjoy Babel. I haven't read it. I mean, there are book arcs coming out that I've seen people read, and I'm so jealous of them because I want one so bad. But if not, I'll be reading it right when it comes out in August.
No, thank you for that. Okay, so then forget Legendborn. I'm reading this one as my inclusive dark academia selection. Definitely. Oh my gosh. And this, yeah. I haven't read the second one or the third one because I just have so much on my TBR, but this one really it messed with me. Oh my gosh.
If you think that, it gets so much better throughout the series. Oh, it's so good. I can rant about that book for hours.
Oh my God. But yeah, it's so that's just amazing. Thank you so much for that. I have so many book recommendations now. I am super excited. Just requested.
It's so good. You will not be disappointed. I can't rave about it enough.
But like with this one, this is one of the ones that I had to, or I wanted to listen to the audiobook along with reading it, because like certain names, I wanted to like hear like how the names would be pronounced or should be, or the places and stuff like that. And I also like the narrator's voice. Like it really like it created. So sometimes I read, I have Audible, but I'll read while I'm hearing the audiobook. And my sister was like, that's dumb. I feel like you're judging. But yeah, so oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I can't believe I didn't know about this book. Yeah, Brittany, you should definitely read this. Yeah, sisters are so nice. Yeah, it's okay. I live with her. Free audiobooks. Oh, right. That's so true. Free audiobooks via the Corpus Christi library system. That is so true. I need to look into that.
You also, because we are all people who have some association with Texas, we all get free access to the Houston Public Library as well. And so you can access all of their ebooks and all of their audiobooks too, in case the Corpus Christi system doesn't have something.
Oh.
Yeah, hang on, I can find a link if anyone wants to.
Yeah, would you be able to, you know what? In case if you all would like the video, sorry, I'm gonna put the video in the chat in case if anybody wants the one that I showed clips from. I'll put it in the chat as well. Thank you for that, Emily. I really appreciate that.
They've got a nice selection of audiobooks.
Yeah, okay. And I just put the video in there as well in case you want to check out the YouTube video that I showed, because they talk about so much more stuff. But thank you all so much. I know people have to run off and go, but I just want to say thank you all for being here. I am super like appreciative. I'm not gonna lie, I probably spent a little bit more time researching than I should have, because I was just getting into rabbit hole, or just going down things. But yeah, I really appreciate y'all being here. This made my day, my week, my month, my year. Thank you so much. Bye y'all. Thank you.
Thanks so much, V.
It was good
Kimberly
to see you.
It was good to see y'all. It was good to see y'all. Bye, Kimberly. Bye, Faith. Thank you, Terry. I really appreciate it. Bye, Joe. Bye, Brittany. Amy.
Bye. See you later.
Hector. Bye, y'all. Y'all have a good one. Thank you.
All right, V, I'm going to stop the recording.
Okay.